Thank you, and good evening, and welcome to Queen Mary, University of London. My name is Colin Bailey, and I'm the President and Principal of Queen Mary, and I'm delighted that you could join us this evening to celebrate the official launch of our Digital Environment Research Institute. I would like to begin by saying a few words about our university. Queen Mary is a world-leading university with a difference. We have a long, proud and distinctive past built on 4 historic institutions stretching back to 1785 and beyond. These were the London Hospital Medical College, St Bartholomew's Medical College, Westfield College and Queen Mary College. All these institutions shared a single vision: to provide hope and opportunity to the less privileged. And we remain true to that vision today. We open the doors of opportunity to anyone who has the potential to succeed. We combined world-leading strengths in education and research. And we are proud of our truly inclusive environment, where students and staff from all over the world flourish and reach their full potential. Our strategy sets out our aim to become the most inclusive university of our kind anywhere in the world, challenging existing knowledge and generating new breakthroughs, and engaging locally, nationally, and internationally through our research and education to address the inequalities which are embedded across the world. Many of the global challenges we face require multidisciplinary approaches, bringing together experts from across the arts, humanities, and sciences to work collectively. Our strategy responds to this in part by committing to the creation of interdisciplinary university research institutes. These institutes are designed to bring together academics and students from across our 3 faculties to advance research, collaboration, and impact. The Digital Environment Research Institute is the first of these, and will soon be followed by 2 university research institutes that we will launch next year. The Institute's mission is to drive progress in digital and data science, including artificial intelligence, to create new knowledge and support UK leadership in this vital and ever-growing field. The Institute has a physical space, Empire House, located in a nearby building, with room for 150 staff, creating an environment for collective multidisciplinary research. The Institute is further supported with high-performance computing to develop the latest generation machine learning methods on large datasets. The Institute will also support our strategic partnership with Barts Health Trust, the Department of Health and Social Care, in the development of the new Life Sciences cluster here in Whitechapel. The cluster is set to establish East London as a major centre of excellence in life sciences. It will create high-quality jobs and skills programmes, attract significant industrial investment, and lead to improvements in health outcomes for the communities of East London and across the world. As part of this cluster, we are set to build a brand new state-of-the-art life sciences centre just across the road. This will significantly enhance the world-leading life sciences research, innovation, education and engagement that already takes place across Queen Mary. Before I close, I would like to thank all the colleagues who helped bring the Digital Environment Research Institute from a vision to a reality. In particular, the members of our staff community who co-created the vision for the University Research Institutes, and our VP Research and Innovation, Andrew Livingston, and Sharon Ellis, our Director of Research, Enterprise and Partnerships, who have worked so hard to make them a reality. This is a great day for Queen Mary and for digital and data science, and I'm excited by what we have achieved which we will achieve in the coming months and years. Now, I would like to introduce Professor Greg Slabar, the inaugural Director of the Digital Environment Research Institute. You might have guessed by now that Greg is online, because unfortunately Greg has currently got COVID, but he has joined us online. Greg is a Professor of Computer Vision and AI at Queen Mary, and is our Turing University lead at the Alan Turing Institute. Greg has extensive expertise in AI research and development, working both in industry and academia. He has held roles at Siemens, MedicSite, City University of London, and joined Queen Mary in 2020 from Huawei, where he was the European Chief Scientist in Computer Vision. Now I'm going to hand over to Greg, and I'm sure the IT will work, as we are a digital institute. Over to you, Greg.
Thank you, Colin, for the kind introduction. I'm really sorry I can't join you all in person this evening, as I've recently tested positive for COVID. Nonetheless, it is a great honor to join you online to celebrate the launch of the Digital Environment Research Institute. The Institute first opened its doors in September 2020. Since then, it has been a whirlwind of activities, speaking with stakeholders across Queen Mary's 3 faculties, Barts Health NHS Trust, and with external partners in government, industry, and the third sector to identify where the Institute can add the most value. Our aims are now clear. First, to build on globally recognized expertise at Queen Mary and foster new multidisciplinary collaborations involving digital and data science. Second, to use our physical space, Empire House, and our virtual spaces effectively to convene research delivering impact for society. Third, to support wider ambitions to maintain UK leadership in data science and AI by creating and sharing knowledge. The opportunity is vast. Digital and data science are permeating many aspects of human life and indeed research. Yet we realized early on that we needed to focus our efforts whilst leaving room for new research areas to emerge. Currently, core research themes in the Institute broadly include AI for biomedicine and healthcare, AI for the environment and sustainability, and computer games intelligence. I'm pleased to announce that we are currently working to hire 4 professors to advance research in such areas, as well as drive new multidisciplinary research in trustworthy AI and AI in financial services. In the Institute, we have created networks for academics to collaborate. We are running a weekly seminar series and hold a host of events, including theme-based workshops and sandpits. Excitingly, some of these multidisciplinary meetings have brought together academics who have worked at the university for decades but had never met. Currently, the Institute has roughly 200 affiliated members in Queen Mary and Barts Health NHS Trust, either based physically in the building or as part of our academic fellow program. We are also outward facing. The Institute is now serving as the interface between Queen Mary and the Alan Turing Institute. We are working with industry partners of all sizes on collaborative research. Relatedly, we will be setting up an industry alliance for companies to join our institute to take a more active role in partnering with us. And we are already partnering with academics from other universities and institutions to grow new networks for research and knowledge exchange. In summary, in the Digital Environment Research Institute, we've established an outstanding foundation for multidisciplinary research in digital and data science. We are well on our way to building the critical mass needed to deliver groundbreaking research addressing major challenges facing society. and I'm pleased to say we are open for business. I would now like to introduce Lord Tim Clement Jones, who will facilitate the next part of tonight's program. Tim is the House of Lords Liberal Democrat spokesperson for digital. He is also the former chair of the House of Lords Select Committee on Artificial Intelligence and currently co-chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on AI. He is a founding member of the OECD Parliamentary Group on AI and a member of the Council of Europe's Ad Hoc Committee on AI. And last but not least, he is also chair of council of Queen Mary University of London. Over to you, Tim.
That's great, Greg. Thanks very much. I think the acoustics are almost too good here, aren't they? I think we're getting a bit of an echo chamber, but hopefully that'll settle down. But thank you, Colin and Greg, very much indeed. And if I could add to their welcome, welcome everybody this evening. Now, as we celebrate the opening of Queen Mary's new digital environment research institute, it's a chance to reflect on the potential of AI in the UK and on the international stage. And it's always a little bit dangerous, but I'm assuming that not everybody has a definition of AI in their heads, and not everybody in the audience today is an AI specialist. So I think it's worth just looking back at some of the definitions that are given for AI, so we know what we're talking about today. Brad Smith, the president of Microsoft, talks about AI as software which learns from experience, which I think is quite a nice way of defining it. The National AI Strategy, put together by Sana, who you'll hear from later, describes AI as machines that perform tasks normally requiring human intelligence, especially when those machines learn from data how to do those tasks. Quite an interesting definition itself. Now, the National AI Strategy, which was published at the end of last year, recognizes, and I'm quoting, the power of AI to increase resilience, productivity with growth and innovation across sectors. And I must say, and I'm just about to introduce the panel, I can't think of any group more suited to discuss the National AI Strategy and the role of universities in its delivery than our panel speakers this evening. So it's a great privilege for me to be chairing the panel, and it's a great privilege to have all the panel with us today. So I'm going to briefly introduce each one and then ask them to come up and take their places, and then I'm going to pose questions at each of them from between now and about 7:20 or so. And we hope that that will be a way of really beginning to unpack the potential of AI, what we think the National AI Strategy is all about, skills, and the place of Queen Mary and Derry in all of this. First of all, I should explain that this is going to be a perfectly hybrid panel. We're going to have three panelists up here in the flesh, so to speak. We'll have Greg as one of our panelists, of course, and then Sana Karagani is also remote because she has also been plagued by Omicron. So I'll start off by introducing Sir Adrian Smith. He's Director and Chief Executive of the Alan Turing Institute, the UK's National Institute for Data Science and AI. Adrian is also a member of the government's AI Council. He was elected President of the Royal Society in 2020. He's a statistician by background. He was elected President of the Royal Society in 2020 and holds high-profile board positions, including Chair of the Board of the Diamond Synchrotron, I'll get that right, no doubt, in due course, Adrian, in Harwell, and board member of the UK Atomic Energy Authority. And Adrian was principal of Queen Mary from 1998 to 2008. So it's a fantastic pleasure to welcome him back to Queen Mary for this event. Adrian, please. Now, I'm hoping that the wonders of this technology take Greg away from our screen, and we have Sana Karagani on the screen, but not yet. Yes, there we are. Hello, Sana. And Sana Karagani is head of the UK government's Office for Artificial Intelligence. Sana studied computer science at MIT and has more than 20 years' experience in business and technology, working across the private and public sectors. The Office for AI's mission is to drive responsible and innovative uptake of AI in the UK. Sana's team engages with organizations and the public to scope unmet needs and shape approaches towards investment and adoption of AI. And of course, Sana was absolutely central to the creation of the National AI Strategy, about which we'll hear more later. Sana, welcome. And now over to Gary Pyrodu, who is Chief Technology Officer at Exscientia, a UK-based company using AI research to revolutionize drug discovery. Gary has more than 25 years' experience in the drug discovery and technology leadership space. Exscientia was spun out of the University of Dundee and is now one of the world's fastest-growing pharmatech companies. Exscientia is collaborating with Queen Mary through Derry. I'm not going to keep repeating the full title of the institute, on new doctoral training programs. And we'll come back to this later during our discussion. Gary, welcome. And now to Shahid Al-Ghursi, who is an MSc student in machine learning for visual data analytics in Queen Mary's School of Electronic Engineering and Computer Science. She's also a Chevening Scholar. This is a prestigious scholarship awarded to individuals with ambition, leadership qualities, and a passion for influencing positive change. Prior to coming to Queen Mary to further her education, Shahid worked in industry as a machine learning engineer. And she has a much more interesting backstory than that, believe me. So Shahid, welcome. And last but not least, Greg, who is still on our screen, I'm glad to say, is also going to be an important part of our panel. So before we really get cracking on the questions, I'm going to, just as a warm-up, ask our panel to use 4 words or about 4 words to tell us what they think a really interesting application of AI is. And I'm going to start with Adrian and then go along the panel and then jump on to remote. So Adrian, 4 or so words, tell us an interesting application of AI.
How's my feedback? Can you hear me? I misunderstood the question. I thought we were asked for 4 interesting applications. So number 1, early prognosis of Alzheimer's. Number 2, revolutionized interventions in cystic fibrosis. Number 3, using satellite data on ice flows in the Antarctic to understand sea level rise. And the 4th one that might surprise you is an underground farm off Clapham High Street.
Only 500 yards from where I live. How about that? Great. Gary.
Cool. Well, I got asked this question a couple of minutes ago, so something I'm going to talk about a little bit more as we go through the panel. 3 words: transforming medicine's discovery.
Fantastic. Shahid.
Well, as I love cooking, AI-based generate for recipes is an interesting app that I came through before I come here.
We've got quite a variety so far, haven't we? Sana.
I would go for AI to help wildlife conservation.
Thank you. Tracking wildlife poaching and things like that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And Greg.
I'm a big fan of DALL-E. It's an AI that takes text and creates an image.
Right, well, I think that's a pretty good demonstration of the sheer width of AI. And I personally would choose some sort of AI like GPT-3, which would help me write my speeches, quite honestly. They'd probably be far better than they are at the moment. Great. So, Sana, let me start with you as the first question, since one of the key subjects today that we're talking about is the National AI Strategy. and you were responsible for overseeing its implementation. For those who are less familiar with the strategy, could you just tell us a little bit about its aims and priorities?
Yes, of course. Thank you very much. And as Greg said earlier, I too am very sorry not to be there in person. I've been really looking forward to this event for some time. And I have also contracted COVID for the second time, faring better this time. So thank you, but I'm very glad to be able to do this virtually today. About the strategy. So the goals of the strategy are really about making sure that the UK experiences significant growth, not just in the number and the types of discoveries that happen here in the UK, but also the ones that are commercialized and exploited here. The strategy is aiming for the UK to benefit from the highest amount of economic growth and productivity due to AI, and also to ensure that the UK establishes the most trusted and pro-innovation system of AI governance in the world. The strategy commits the government to delivering a number of interventions based around 3 pillars. That is, investing in and planning for the long-term needs of the AI ecosystem, ensuring that AI benefits all sectors and regions, and also ensuring that the UK gets the national and international governance of AI technologies right. Delivering on the strategy requires proper collaboration. So it's not just about a bit of the ecosystem sitting and talking to itself, but really about both the government and industry working together and collaborating. And work's already begun on delivering the commitments that have been made under these pillars. I think, though, it's important to mention here that we expect that the commitments under these pillars to change and evolve as time goes on. That this is a 10-year vision and the pillars should remain true, but the activities under these pillars will continue to change and evolve as we move forward in discoveries, etc. So over the past few years, we've made sure that there is appropriate investment in AI skills and crucially how to help increase diversity in the AI workforce. We've worked with the Office for Students on postgraduate conversion masters courses. This is to offer scholarships for students from underrepresented groups. In the autumn budget, after the publication of the strategy, the Chancellor announced extra funding, £23 million of extra funding to double the number of scholarships. He also announced an extra 5 Turing AI fellowships to attract and retain the best and brightest minds here to the UK. This is about training the next generation of innovators. We've done some work on IP. In October, we launched a consultation on copyright and patent legislation for AI through the IPO. This is now closed. It's being collated and analyzed. In November, the Central Digital and Data Office in the Cabinet Office developed and published the world's first algorithmic transparency standard for use in the public sector. Also in November, £1 million of funding went to data governance research in the Global Partnership on AI. This was announced, the research was announced yesterday at AI UK, which is the Turing's annual AI conference. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later, unless Adrian beats me to it. In December, government took its first major step towards reviewing the AI governance landscape with the publication of the Centre for Data Ethics and Innovation's AI Assurance Roadmap. This is really talking about how the important role that assurance plays in governance, and really looking at this not just from the perspective of helping governance, but also from creating its own sector almost for the UK to lead on. In January, we complemented the assurance roadmap with the UK AI Standards Hub pilot. This is being led by the Alan Turing Institute with support from BSI and NPL. There are loads of commitments in the strategy, as you're aware. Tim, there are commitments around skills, around data, around infrastructure, R&D investment, leveling up. There's a lot there that relies on the whole of government and the wider economy to work together. And one of the next steps is that the Office for AI will be publishing an action or a delivery plan to set out what the different bits of government are doing and how we're going to deliver some of the most important areas within these different pillars.
Huge amount of work involved in all of that, and you've got the AI governance white paper, which is due to come into play, June or May or something around there. I suspect you're working on that as we speak, Sana.
Yes,
and
indeed.
It's not
This year. It'll come out this year.
Yeah, this year now. I was told spring, you know. Excellent. Now, I'm just going to do a little advert for our polling session at the end, which is going to take place at the end of all the questions. At the end of the session, we're going to be running a polling session, which both people who are online and in the room will be able to take part in. For those in the room, you'll need to scan the QR code that comes up on the screen at the end. Scan it into your mobiles, and then you'll sign in with your name and email address and so on. For those online, it'll be much more straightforward. The polling questions will simply come up, and you'll see them, I suspect, in the just straight on the screen or in the chat. So that should be much more straightforward without having to register. But I'll alert everybody when the polling begins, and you'll see when the QR code comes up, because it's just going to be a nice way of finding out what people think about different aspects of AI and AI development in the future. So thank you very much, Sana. And now on to Greg. Given that we've heard from Sana the pretty comprehensive nature of the National AI Strategy, where does Queen Mary and Derry in particular fit with the strategy's pillars?
Thanks, Tim. As an academic research institute, Derry and more broadly Queen Mary play an important role in providing the critical components of the AI ecosystem: generation of new knowledge in AI and its applications, training of the skilled workforce, and collaboration with external partners working across discipline boundaries and sectors. As a specific example of this, we have a BBSRC-funded program with Exscientia and other companies to train 21 PhD students in AI for drug discovery. Often biology, AI, and pharmacology are siloed into different academic disciplines. Our program will train a new generation of AI-native bioscientists equipped to address the critical challenge of using AI to accelerate and optimize the drug discovery process. These students and the research in this program will be part of an effort to boost the pharma tech sector, particularly as the program is industry-led. The PhD research topics are co-designed with industry professionals, and the PhD students will have joint industry and academic supervision. Students will also work in a company for a minimum of 3 months, developing valuable on-the-job skills. We're currently interviewing candidates for the first cohort, which will start this fall. More broadly, Queen Mary has a number of data science and AI programs, including innovative PhD centers for doctoral training, MSc courses, and to Sana's point, MSc conversion courses, which are focused in digital and data science. We also have degree apprenticeships. Queen Mary was the first Russell Group university to offer a degree apprenticeship with its Digital and Technology Solutions program, which started in 2015. Currently, the university is expanding its degree apprenticeships offer in data science, both here at Queen Mary and through our collaboration in the London City Institute of Technology. Great. Finally, the third pillar of the National AI Strategy focuses on governance of AI. In Derry, we recognize the importance of getting the governance right so that AI systems can be trusted by the public. At the same time, any regulation should also recognize the limitations of current AI technologies. We think this is a very interesting area for multidisciplinary research involving the law, regulation, AI standards, human-computer interaction, as well as research into new AI methods that are embedded with fairness, safety, and accountability. And we're investing in this area by hiring a professor of trustworthy AI to grow our research capacity in the Institute and collaborate with scholars across the university and beyond. Back to you, Tim.
Great, thanks, Greg. And we're going to hear from Shahid, of course, about her MSc course before very long. Adrian, we've heard Sana talk about the skills aspect of the National AI Strategy. We've heard Greg talk about this in the context of Queen Mary. In terms of skills training, what concrete measures do you think are needed to equip the workforce with skills that are essential to drive AI forward?
Okay, let me start with a more basic question. What do we mean by data science and AI skills? What is the skill set, and who defines it? And we have professions of lawyers and statisticians and the rest where there are codes of conduct and definitions of what you need to know in order to have the label applied to you. I think we still have some way to go to understand what exactly we mean by phrases like data scientist. We're working in Turing with British Computing Society, Royal Statistical Society, etc., to think if between us we could come up with some kind of accreditation scheme. A survey that was done for Turing by McKinsey found one of the big difficulties that corporates have in getting to grips with this is what kind of creature are we talking about? How do we define, what are the job descriptions? How do we recruit, et cetera, et cetera? So I think there's something big to do there. But we don't just need the technical experts. It's a bit like the car. I have no idea what a carburetor is, but I can drive a car. And a lot of the applications that are going to transform business and public services are going to be run by people who don't know what goes on under the bonnet. So how do we get them to acquire the skills of what you can do with AI without being experts in AI? And perhaps I'll stop there. But those are two big things. What is it? And who needs to know about it? Not just the techie experts, but people who are going to apply it. And the third stream will be those who have to understand standards and regulation around it, legal and other issues.
And that's a real challenge, that third one, isn't it? It was interesting that the AI Council roadmap specifically talked about that aspect and came up with some, I thought, rather imaginative ideas in terms of an academy that would help drive those sort of AI digital skills forward, which struck me as being very sensible. And of course, actually, you might just mention the AI Council in the context, because it does bring together quite a lot of different interests towards really adopting the national strategy.
Well, in our first meetings of the AI Council, just to kind of try and get a grip on this concrete landscape, there were really three headings. One was data, which I'm sure we'll come on to. The second one was skills. And the third one really is public engagement, because at the end of all this stuff has to be accepted and used in the public domain, and we don't want to get back into GM crops and MMR vaccines.
Absolutely not, no. Quite right. Shahid, we've heard that you're...
Sorry, Tim, can I chime in on that for a sec?
Oh, yes, of course, Gary.
What I just want to really echo, actually, is for us, certainly for me as a CTO in a company using AI, access to skills is probably the biggest challenge we're facing. Yeah. So I think, you talked about some really important things. The thing I want to stress is, especially because I imagine that there's a number of people in this audience who are studying AI and data science related topics, this is really, really important. Access to highly skilled people is what's going to make the difference in this country.
Great.
So keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. Terrific. Well, if that isn't encouragement, I don't know what is. And Shahid is the embodiment of it. Tell us about your journey to Queen Mary and how you came to really get interested in AI, Shahid.
Well, it all started in 2017, where I was introduced to deep learning specifically in my undergrad. After having taken some courses, I started working as a researcher and developer in the computer vision lab in our uni, where I closely worked with master's students on adversarial machine learning, computer vision-based projects for a couple of companies. After that, I decided that my graduation project would be on autonomous cars, self-driving cars. And one of the points when I decided that I want to keep on in this path, whenever you enter a field related to computer science, you have a variety of fields that you can specialize in. And what I did was trying some of these for a couple, years. Like I did Android development, I did web development. You have many fields, and if you can't say, hell yeah, I want to do this till the rest of my life, then you should try the thing that would be your hell yeah. And AI was my hell yeah. I graduated and I started working in tech company. It's a leader operator in Turkey called Turkcell. I worked there for 2.5 years, and I built really good skills. After working, I recognized something, and I guess it could be generalized to many big tech companies, that when you work as an engineer, as a machine learning engineer specifically, you focus on building high, scalable products and optimize them. But you forget about the research behind, you forget about the theory behind, how to develop new algorithms, how to invent new algorithms. So I decided to quit my job and start master's, applied for Chevening, which was quite competitive with an acceptance rate low than 200%. Mm-hmm. And voila, I'm here at Queen Mary.
Fantastic. Well, we're absolutely delighted that you've come to Queen Mary, believe me. Fantastic. Gary, now just pursuing this skills point a bit, as a spin-out company from a university, you're a great example of how data science knowledge and skills from academia can translate into business success. What do you think are the key elements to effectively transfer skills and knowledge between universities and industry? What do you think can be done to actually improve that situation? Because it creaks, doesn't it?
It does in some instances, absolutely, Tim. So maybe let me tell you a really brief story about Exscientia. So this wasn't me, this was the company. I didn't spin it out. Andrew Hopkins spun it out from the University of Dundee with 3 other people that he wanted to start the company with. And that was 10 years ago now. And it was an idea, it was a dream that he had about how he could make drugs in a completely different way and actually revolutionize the process of drug discovery. Wind forward 10 years to where we are now. We're a company with 350 employees. We IPO'd last year. We've got offices in Miami, Boston, Oxford, Cambridge, and Dundee. And I believe we're Europe's fastest growing biotech. So it's been quite an incredible journey, and I think is a real indication of what you can do when you have the sort of passion that you just talked about to follow your dream, and you have a really great idea. Unfortunately, there are other fantastic examples of this across the UK, and I think there's fantastic science in the UK and fantastic opportunities for it, but it's probably not the norm. And we were talking an hour ago about how this is way more common in Boston, in Massachusetts, than it is in the UK. And I think that's something that we really need to look at how we can change.
It's partly a cultural issue, almost like a business cultural issue.
I'm actually really pleased you said that, because I think it is partly a cultural issue. It almost feels like a natural thing in the US to want to start a company. I'm not sure it's a natural thing in the UK for people to want to start a company. But we've got to do that. We've got to encourage it. We've got to pile more money in. We've got to make investment easier. We've got to develop an investment base that wants to invest for the long term in the UK. And we've got to make it easier for people to spin out ideas and people to leave universities. I think one of the things I could challenge universities on is actually how they construct their IP framework around, does it really enable people to start businesses? But there's a second thing
I can see us having some good conversations after this panel on that.
I think but there's a second thing I want to recognise while we're here talking about dairy, because I think actually what UK academia does really, really well is collaboration with industry. And I can remember a year ago, Greg called me up and talked to me and said, hey, we're thinking of building this institute, do you want to come on board? And I was really struck by the vision and the ambition and the idea to create something dynamic and agile, which is what you need. You need dynamism, you need agility. And then, wind forward a year, where are we now? We're advertising for 3 students to work on really great projects in computer vision, projects in text mining, things that are really, really important to us. So I think there's an interesting dichotomy here, that academia is great at collaborating with industry, case awards, the whole framework, the UKRI framework, I think, really encourages that. It's perhaps not generating the number of companies that we might like to see. I'll pause there. Otherwise,
That's a fantastic segue straight into my next question to Greg, which is, how is Derry collaborating with business? We've heard about Gary's experience with Derry and Exscientia. What's your broad approach, Greg?
We have a menu of options for collaboration. So one of the simplest ways a company can engage with us is to just give a talk in our weekly seminar series. For example, in the next few months, we'll have speakers from Microsoft, Amazon, and Graphcore giving talks. And Gary's colleague Dan from Exscientia gave a talk last term. These talks are a great way to discuss the work being done at the company and make connections to academic staff who are working on related problems, and that can lead to collaborative work. Another simple way for a company is to propose an MSc project for one of our students, like Shahid, to work on as part of their course. The company can benefit from working with an eager student who outputs tangible results relevant for the business, and the student benefits by collaborating with industry professionals and bolstering their CV. MSc student projects are only for a few months though. For larger projects, a company can sponsor a PhD student. This route can explore a research problem at a deeper level, but it does require a 3-year commitment by the company to see the student complete their research. Beyond PhD students, Derry is also interested to explore industry-funded academic positions. Yet another collaboration mode is consultancy. This can be arranged flexibly, for example, on a project basis or even on a daily or hourly rate. In Derry, we have a number of companies we're working with, from micro SMEs to large international conglomerates. We offer expertise in digital, data science, and AI, a talented workforce of students, and outstanding research capabilities, especially at the interface of domain boundaries. In the next year, we're also planning to set up an industrial alliance for companies to join the Institute for richer collaboration. Finally, perhaps the most common way for a company to collaborate with us is to work with us on a grant application, like Exscientia did with the BBSRC. This can be industry-led, or it can be led by Derry academics. Grants can be of different sizes depending on the scale of work to be done. As another recent example, working with the company Wise, we were recently awarded a knowledge transfer partnership. This is a 3-way collaboration between a company, a university, and an associate who is hired to do the project. The grant pays for the associate's time as well as time from our academics to work on industry-focused research and development. This way, a company can tap into the rich expertise that exists in the university. The academic gets to work on an impactful project, and the associate benefits from working both with industry professionals and academics to solve a business need. If there are any companies listening that are interested to hear more, please get in touch.
I knew the sales pitch was coming, Greg. Fantastic. But that's a great menu of possibilities for any business in this field. Now, I'm going to come to Adrian and then Sana on the next question, because clearly we know that data, that AI relies on data, but data itself, isn't always unbiased. It isn't always the right kind of data. What measures do you think the National AI Strategy sets out in this respect? If we're going to, in a sense, get trustworthy AI, we need trustworthy data, Adrian.
Yeah, so I think the starting point is to recognize what the problems are. Where do data sets come from? They've probably been assembled by human beings. They've been collected. They've been selected. So there are problems of selection bias, coverage, all the usual stuff that statisticians have known about for ages. But if these data sets are vast and you can't actually see the anomalies in them, and you set off machine learning and other algorithms to learn from them, you may be replicating all those kind of biases and so on. And then when the algorithm comes out, What in terms of the strategy do we need to worry about? We need to worry about things like fairness in decisions that are made on the basis of data, accountability. This is a really difficult one, accountability and explainability. If your DeepMind, you boast that your machine can play Go better than a human being, but nobody understands why. If you're going to have a surgeon use the algorithm to cut me open, I might want to know, why? Why is this happening? So transparency, explainability, fairness.
I'd never heard that used as an illustration before. Excellent.
Next time you're on the operating table, reflect on it. If we get these things wrong, it will set back, the use, the very positive potential and transformative uses of AI and data science. So it's important to get it right. Part of getting it right, I think Sana flagged in the overall strategy, we need a diversity of people of different backgrounds who are involved in the processes. This is not a purely techie exercise. We need inputs from all sorts of social, behavioral, economic, ethical backgrounds. And I think the strategy recognizes that this is important, for moral, social, economic reasons. And ultimately, the big question of how do you develop standards? Can you develop them in one country? Or if we're going to trade devices on the basis of algorithms, we're going to need international standards, aren't we? And typically, this stuff leads to regulation. So can we regulate algorithms? I think these are issues raised and regarded as central by the strategy. But we still have to solve a lot of these issues.
Well, Sana, you can give us all the answers now, can't you?
I think a little bit unfair to have me following Adrian, for sure, especially when it comes to a question around data. But why don't I talk a little bit about some of the things that we're doing and some of the things that have been happening in government for the past little while. I completely concur with what Adrian was saying, the kind of diversity of thought and being very aware of what the data looks like. We know that data is the center of helping us tackle society's biggest challenges. We saw how data underpinned our fight against COVID-19, and obviously, some of us are still fighting, and it hasn't really gone away, right? The government has been looking at about the use of data through the National Data Strategy, which is explicitly pro-growth and places the availability of data and confidence in its use at its heart. The National Data Strategy has been working with stakeholders to ensure that the frameworks that government uses and proposes against the backdrop of a fast evolving technical and policy landscape stay current and relevant. In May, last year, the National Data Strategy consultation was closed, and the UK's data framework is now we're looking to make sure it's fit for purpose and to make sure that we have the data we need to make available the data that is required by industry to kind of use for the applications around AI and otherwise. But I think the key here is that none of this is new for us. Since 2016, the data ethics framework came out in government, and this was the first document of its kind. It really formed the basis of government's leadership on ethics, and it guides the appropriate and responsible data use in government and the wider public sector. Based off of that, various other forms of ethical data use have come out from the NHS, for example. Also, we worked with the Alan Turing Institute to create a piece of guidance called Understanding Artificial Intelligence Ethics and Safety. This is one of the most comprehensive guidelines on the topics of AI ethics and safety in the public sector to date. And we're actually working with Turing now to update this set of guidance as well. It identifies the potential harms caused by AI systems and proposes concrete measures to counteract them. And one of the ways that we're looking at now to address some of these problems is specifically around how we can get the governance of AI right. So this is looking at exactly the things that Adrian was talking about: transparency, accountability, assurance, reliability, fairness, right? Things that from a mathematical perspective, I have heard have been solved. Fairness, you can solve fairness with an equation, but that's if you are able to give values to the different parts of the equation, and that's where the kind of crux of the problem is, right? We've committed to creating a pro-innovation approach to regulation. I love that wording. I think it's really important that we don't try and put being innovative and regulating AI as loggerheads with each other. I think creating the right set of guidelines and the right set of guardrails for AI to be developed in a way that gives society faith, and it allows us to create a positive perception and mitigate against the risks, is how you allow innovation to actually flourish rather than stomping it out. So, I talked about some of the things that we're doing. The AI Standards Hub talked about we're publishing this AI Standards white paper, the AI white paper on governance later this year. The UK has long led from the front in these areas, it's. I think one final point just to make on the standards, to pick up on what Adrian was saying. The Standards Hub is about bringing that conversation together, and joining the international conversation with experts internationally, because this isn't, again, about one country leading or driving their own position. It's about getting all the right experts internationally into a room and figuring out what's the answer to these challenges that makes sense from an international perspective. And that's what we're trying to do with the help of the Alan Turing Institute on the Standards Hub. So we're really looking at kind of a lot of these elements together to address some of this from an AI perspective when it comes to things like bias.
I was going to mention the data justice work that the Turing has done for the global partnership, if you didn't, but you did, and it's very, very impressive, and it shows, where we are in terms of the sort of international work, pretty high up there on that sort of trustworthy data agenda. Just a little word on diversity, Sana, because that's it is a very common factor between the AI Council, the Office for AI. It's still, if you like, the Achilles heel to some degree in this field. But it requires cross-governmental action, doesn't it, really, in that sense? Do you feel that there's enough being done? And you can understand our interest in this because, we are a very diverse university in our student population, and it's a very important issue for us.
So I never think there's enough being done on diversity. I think that you can always do more. The government's work on the conversion courses, which allows people with non-STEM or near STEM backgrounds to convert to using AI and learning about AI and data science, is a step, what I would consider a small step, in the right direction, but it's at least moving the dial, right? The scholarships are incredibly helpful because they allow students from underrepresented groups to start getting involved. I mean, the power of this, it won't, and it cannot be solved just by government. It requires industry and universities and all the partners in the ecosystem to really come together and work together, right? And I really truly believe that the power of this is when you crash disciplines into AI. So kind of again what Adrian was talking about earlier, that the council put this out, which was the future is really about the people. It's not just about the people who develop AI, but it's also the people who work with AI and who live with AI, right? And all those groups are important. And I think from a diversity perspective, we've been really zooming in on the developers and saying there isn't enough developers, and that's right. And we need to have more developers in there. But we also need to kind of open up and say the people who use these applications and the people who have to live and work with these applications are equally as important. We also need to get their skills level up, and that will allow that that data on how these applications are being used and by different people will also help ensure that the applications are more representative, and will also start to show where we're falling down, where the developers don't have access to all of the information they need, right? Because they're inside their kind of box of understanding. And so I do think that we need to be thinking about diversity, not just in that one area, but across the board. And I think I don't think we're anywhere near done. I think we've done a little bit, but it should be the first thing we talk about when we talk about skills. It should be the most important thing to make sure people are involved. The work we're doing internationally is also showing, is bringing this, putting an importance on this, right? So whether it be working in the global partnership on AI, making sure countries from around the world are represented inside organizations, inside expert fora like that, and making sure their perspectives and their problems and challenges are added to what we're trying to solve and what developers are trying to solve. I think it's all really important, but again, a drop in the ocean. Really needs everyone, not just government.
Work in progress. Thank you very much, Sana. A really important issue. So, Gary, I'm going to come to you and to really talk about where you think AI has added productivity and led to breakthroughs in the health sector. Something, that where we've seen AI really deliver in the field in which Accenture operates.
Sure, thanks. And that was a really interesting discussion, thank you. Maybe I'll just add one comment on that one before. You didn't mention schools, and I think actually we need to go much, much earlier with inspiring people. By the time they've got to university, by the time you lot are out there, you've already made your mind up what you're going to do. We need to be really tackling people much, much earlier if we're going to make a significant dent in this. Okay, so I can tell you a little bit about, just 2 or 3 minutes, about what we've done at Accenture. My ambition here is not to brag about what our company's done. I would happily do that for hours, but that's not what I want to do. What I want to do is try and inspire you that there are some fantastic things that can be done with AI, and it's a really, really interesting area to be going into and thinking more broadly than perhaps the more obvious approaches. So I mentioned a little while ago, what we've been thinking about is how do we transform the process of drug discovery? And that is a process that is quite lengthy and typically takes of the order of 4 to 5 years to actually create a drug molecule that is going to make a difference, and then you've got a long, lengthy clinical testing process. So we focused on the creation of that molecule. We built a platform that is wholly based on using artificial intelligence, machine learning, computational methods. We build a whole series of models that are predictive. We run generative AI algorithms that are creating molecules. That's a method of using AI to do molecular ideation. We're using more detailed models to score those. We're using approaches like active learning, like Shannon entropy, to actually make selections. This entire platform is wholly driven and wholly based on computational methods. Yes, there's a lot of human involvement. We have very, very skilled people who are working out how to set objectives and how to drive that, but the actual molecular design is done using computational methods. Why would you care? What's important about this is it's probably 4 times faster than traditional methods. What that means, in effect, is we are identifying candidate molecules probably 3 years quicker than the industry average. So when you're talking about identifying cures for cancer, tackling TB, tackling malaria, tackling the next pandemic, saving years off that time is really, really important. And then you can also think about, we've been expanding that platform out now, and we're doing things like using computer vision to look at individual patients' tumor cells and identify the difference between tumor cells and our drugs killing them versus non-tumor cells, and using microscopy, using computer vision, using deep learning models to really understand that. So there's a whole world of really interesting and really important things that I think you can get involved in.
Fantastic. And that actually leads very nicely to Shahid. What kind of AI challenges would you, I mean, you work in a completely different AI field, I think, don't you? Vision. What kind of AI challenges would you like to work on in your future career?
Like in my future career, regarding my past experience of being a refugee myself in Turkey, I believe that technology can make better decisions, especially when it comes to data, and it reflects on what Gary has mentioned. So I want to work on and it was also my proposal project for the chevening, which focuses on leadership and humanitarian fields. I want to work on a project that helps governments make better decisions when it comes to handling refugee crises. Unfortunately, this is a problem that is repeating itself, and over the years and decades, we have gathered a lot of data about how refugees are fleeing and how bad the governments are handling those refugees. So one of my long-term goals is to work on this crucial problem, because I believe in the decision that we can make depending on data, regardless the religion of the people, the ethnicity, the race. It's all bounded to the data that you would use.
Fantastic. And so really, that is a living proof of the ability of AI to solve some of the Sustainable Development Goals, which I've always believed in very strongly. That really is AI for good, isn't it?
I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gary, what do you look for when you're actually hiring a scientist at Exscientia?
That's a great
Everybody's agog at that question, you know.
I think it's four things, really. So, I mean, obviously, we're looking for technical excellence, and we're looking for people who are outstanding scientists, outstanding technologists, and have a really deep understanding of their field and can bring that. But that's absolutely not enough. In fact, I'd almost go as far as to say that's not the most important thing. I think what we're looking for is, we're mission-driven. You can probably tell from the things I'm talking about. We're looking for people who want to be part of this journey, that want to be part of actually how do we transform discovering medicines. So I think one of the most important things we're looking for is people that buy into our vision and want to be part of that creation. And then I care really, really deeply about teamwork. I think nothing that is really important is ever going to be solved by one individual. And we need to create teams that function, and I want people that want to work collaboratively and want to work as part of a team. And then I think the final thing that we're thinking about is, actually, are you going to enjoy the experience of working with us? I want people who are going to be passionate and are going to love to work with us. So I'm really looking for, do you strike me as the sort of person that is going to fit into the environment, to the culture that we've created?
Great. Now, two final questions. First one to Alan. I don't know whether you've spent it in a darkened room or not, but the Alan Turing Institute has, I think, just convened the UK's AI community over the last 2 days, showcasing ongoing research and emerging trends in AI and data science. And they were also structured around the National AI Strategy. Are there any sort of conclusions or learnings from those days that you would like to share with us, Adrian? And I'm going to ask Sana briefly as well. I'm sure she was present at that, and we'll have some thoughts as well.
So you said showcasing for the AI community. It goes way beyond the AI community, I have to say, so bear with me. There were 2,200 people who registered, 42 sessions, 250 speakers, 20 workshops, and the average time that those who registered spent was 9 hours over 2 days. So this is reaching out to a huge community. There were sessions ranging from all the ethical stuff that Sana and I have talked about, right through to molecular simulation, and the opportunity for people who tuned in to form networks and follow up afterwards. So this is spreading the news in a much wider than just the techie community, but also giving the wherewithal for people to network and take things forward. All this stuff, advert, will be up on YouTube within the next 2 weeks. And what this, I mean, it's part of it is creating this public awareness and getting people to form networks and groups. One of the things, going back to the skills set, you know, is it computer science, is it mathematics, is it statistics, is it economics, whatever. One of the great things we do at the Turing is you present challenges, whether they're climate challenges or health challenges, and you convene groups of people who normally, even within universities, don't normally get together. And that's one of the great things now, back to today, an institute which can bring people together from different disciplines, because actually universities don't naturally work that way, and it gets in the way of the development of these subjects.
And you've got how many Turing Fellows now?
450.
450. So the way that's been brought together under the Turing is extraordinary. Sana, what did you take away?
Such an unfair question. I was one of those people who spent a lot of hours between the 2 days listening.
You were being very carefully tracked, obviously.
No, so I really, actually, one of my favorite things to hear was on day 2 on the public policy stage. We listened to the Global Partnership on AI talk about the work that they've been doing over the last year on data trusts, which are about kind of allowing multiple individuals or organizations to kind of give control over data to a new institution, and the power that has and what that can kind of deliver. And this team, which is an international team led out of the Global Partnership on AI, they consulted more than 50 organizations around the world and looked at 3 key use cases. And this was all online, and this was all announced at the Alan Turing AI UK event yesterday. So please go and look this up. The first focused on city cycling, with particular focus on London and how data trust with cycling community here could help guide planning on infrastructure investment and how cities can get set up around this. The second looked at a small shareholder farming in India, examining how data trust can support local farmers to generate local data sets suited to their specific environmental circumstances. So making sure that like microclimates in different bits of India are actually creating the types of crops that would be helpful and would complement other places. And the last one was around a case study in Peru on climate migration, using feasibility assessment to consider how local communities and organizations could form a climate and displacement data trust to provide a powerful mechanism for indigenous data stewardship. So, I mean, I think it's just some really, really interesting stuff. And that the Office for AI started work on data trust early doors with the ODI, but that work has continued forward. And you mentioned some of this, the Turing and his partners focusing on expanding our understanding of data justice as well. So there's a lot of work happening here, and funding going from government into these areas. And I just thought it was a really fantastic to hear the panelists talk about that with passion. And really bring to life the power of something like a data trust, you know. And I think it's and you know what Adrian said, I think should just be kind of repeated here, which is this is not the tech community talking to the tech community. This was about bringing other people along for the journey, because again, that's what this is. These AI is solving real challenges. Right, the Sustainable Development Goals are challenges that affect all of us in the world, right? And AI is helping us solve those problems. And it's listening to people like Shahid tonight, you know, talking about the refugees and talking about real problems that, you know, she sees herself being part of fixing. That's what inspires me, and that's what we need more people to hear about.
Great stuff. Thank you, Sana. And Greg, just to wrap up our discussion, we've heard some great examples, not least from Sana just now, from Shahid, from Gary. Where do you think AI could have the most transformative effect? How is Derry going to embrace those kinds of opportunities?
Very optimistic about AI's potential to positively impact key challenges facing society like the ones just discussed. There's so much I could say here, but I'll keep my comments brief. First, I'm highly supportive of the National AI Strategy's insight that there is opportunity for adoption of AI technologies in lower AI maturity sectors. I personally think there are big successes to be had in healthcare, for example, particularly as gene and RNA sequencing has become more commonplace. Using AI to integrate genotypes and phenotypes is at the core of precision medicine, leading to personalized treatments. Another area that Sana was just talking about is the environment. Last year's COP26 conference highlighted the importance of reducing global greenhouse gas emissions, looking towards a net zero future. AI certainly has a role to play here. One example is better understanding of photosynthesis through computational modeling. Another is using AI methods like graph neural networks to discover catalysts that convert carbon dioxide into value-added chemicals. In fact, these are two projects already underway in Derry, working in collaboration with Queen Mary colleagues and other partners. To embrace all these opportunities, our plan is to build upon our current multidisciplinary approach. We will grow our existing networks and activities in the Institute, tapping into research expertise in the university, cutting across disciplinary silos. We will leverage our infrastructure, including our building and our high-performance computing. We will invest in staff to grow capacity in strategic research areas and train researchers, empowering them with advanced skills in digital and data science. And we will continue to collaborate with partners such as the Alan Turing Institute, the government, industry, third sector, and other universities, many of which are represented here today. Thank you.
That's great, Greg. Thanks very much indeed. And before I thank our panel, this is the witching hour as we turn to our polling. So I'm hoping that Hannah and her colleagues are going to be able to display, and I think this doesn't mean that Sana and Greg disappear. That's very good. We've got the QR code on the screen here. So if everybody would point their mobile so that we can then get everybody registered for the polling. And I think you can probably confirm if you're looking online, Greg and Sana, that you'll be able to see the polling actually on your screens. They may not have appeared quite yet. Great. So I think our team will probably know when we've got critical mass of people who've all signed up. We'll just give it a few seconds because you have to put your name and email address and such like in there. This is our form of data capture too, so we know exactly who you are. So hopefully all those have scanned in, and the polling questions are here. And this is the point where the panel fumble around with their phones as well. Is everybody having success? You get told. Your answer has been successfully recorded. Excellent. So I'm not quite sure the procedure here. Hopefully we get the... Oh, I see. Okay, we keep answering until we get told the right answers at the end, I think. Oh, yes, here we are. We've got the answers on our phones, haven't we? So we know the answer to that one. It was D. And we're on to the next one. The second poll has no right answer, but it's interesting to see where the impact is. So let's see what the outcome of that was. Well, that's fairly evenly balanced, isn't it? But I would say that A is in a slight majority. or A and E are pretty close, aren't they? But it's really an approach, I think, rather than any right answer on that. So, well, thank you very much indeed. I am assuming that combined both remote and all those present. So I'd like you, please, to thank our splendid panel who really answered everything thrown at them.